Well, it's been a while since I did an update. I think the last time I did a video was like this was when I was just about to enter into the academy at Swift Transportation. I drove for Swift for a little over 2 years. I made it about 3 months as a company driver before I realized that I'm too independent to be a company driver. So I leased my first truck, which was a nightmare. If you ever decide to lease a truck from Swift Transportation or really any carrier, I recommend that you do not get a used one. The one I got was only about 8 months old, and it was a nightmare. I made it maybe 300 miles from the terminal where they sent me to get it, and it broke down. Well, it didn't really break down, but it was running really badly. Check engine lights. I was getting about 3 miles per gallon. It sucked. It sucked really badly. Went to the Gary terminal for Swift, and their mechanic just reset the codes. Didn't even diagnose it, nothing. Just reset the code, said, "You're good to go." I made it another 200 miles down the road, and it did it again. At that point, I went up to the New Boston terminal in Michigan, which I had to have my load repowered, and then I bobtailed up to New Boston. But first, I actually tried going to a Kenworth dealer in Toledo, Ohio, and they were backed up for a week. I wasn't willing to sit for a week just to have them look at it, so I bobtailed up to the New Boston, Michigan terminal, which is just south of Detroit, where I spent 2 days for the mechanic to do essentially the same thing. He reset the computer and then had it do a forced regen. And then he told me, "You're good to go." Which, I didn't know that at the time. I thought he'd actually taken the time to fix the damn problem. And that was their Cummins guy. At that point, I took a load going to Denver, because they were trying to get us home. At the time, I lived in Phoenix. And then we were supposed to go to Denver and then take a load from Denver down to Phoenix. This time I made it about 600 miles down the road, and then it did it again. The times previous, I was getting about 5.5 miles a gallon, so I was still, it wasn't horrible, but not as good as it could be. A T680 when running right should be able to get about 8 miles a gallon under most driving conditions. And well, this time I was getting 2.5 miles a gallon. It was horrific. But when it broke this time, I was out in the middle of nowhere. And all the shops, like I think I was in Kansas or Iowa or something at that point, all of the shops were backed up. It was the weekend. So I just said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to take this truck to Denver, and then I'm going to tell Swift to shove it up their fucking ass. Excuse my language. I got to Denver, and this time the mechanic at Denver actually did the proper diagnostic steps. And what he found out was the previous owner of that vehicle had blown the engine and replaced the engine without notifying Swift, or IEL, which is their leasing division. And when the engine was replaced, it wasn't installed properly. They'd wired it up wrong. The computer for the emissions control after treatment system was just insane. It burned out my DPF filters and whatnot. Shut up, Siri. It burned out my DPF filters and whatnot, and that's why I was getting such horrible fuel economy, because it just kept trying to regen, but it couldn't regen. The DPF filters were clogged, and they pretty much told me that they would have to replace the whole system again, and it could take up to a month. Which, granted, all of this stuff was covered during the first 30 days of the lease, but I couldn't afford to sit for however long it took for them to figure this out. So I talked to a person in IEL, Rebecca, and she worked out a deal for me to get an entirely new truck, brand new at the time, 2016, which I did. they had me take that truck down to Phoenix, and then they got me a new one. That truck, I ran for about a year. I did really well in it. I was teaming with a relative, and we did okay. And then he wanted to drive with his wife, and I got an option to get a Volvo 780 on a buyout instead of a lease. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. And I gave him the T680. And then I drove the Volvo 780. Well, the Volvo 780 got horrible fuel economy. I mean, that thing sucked. Maybe 6 miles a gallon. And I got spoiled by the T680. I kept that truck for about 6 months, and I got lucky. And a friend of mine who was an independent owner-operator had to retire due to medical reasons, and he offered me his truck, which was a canary yellow T680 with all the options, APU, everything, financed directly through Kenworth. So I took over his contract on that, and like I said, up until this point, I'd been doing okay with Swift. I mean, I wasn't getting rich by any stretch of the imagination, and my best recommendation is if you're planning on leasing a truck to make more money, don't, because you won't. You can actually make more money as a company driver once you include benefits and bonuses and everything else. But anyhow, once I brought that truck onto Swift, my miles just plummeted. It's like, the jaded people are telling me, well, that's because you're no longer paying for one of their trucks, so they don't care about you. They're not going to give you miles. They're going to starve you out to the point you lose that truck, and you have to come back to them and lease another one of their trucks. It's possible that's the case, but I had more faith in Swift than that. I guess I'm gullible. Anyhow, right now I am sitting at the Mercer Transportation Terminal in Louisville, Kentucky. I am starting orientation with them in about an hour and 12 minutes. Well, maybe 2 hours and 12 minutes. My dumb self went to sleep a little too early last night. I woke up about an hour and a half ago, and yeah. But anyhow, I'm going to start orientation with them. Hopefully it'll work out. They're an owner-operator only company. You have to bring in your own truck. I think they do have some lease companies they work with, like quality leasing and whatnot, but I didn't explore that. The way it works with Mercer Transportation is they work with a load board system, much like Landstar. So you go to a website, you find a load you want. It tells you exactly what the load pays, your cut of it. The way it works is like, say they contract a load, the broker pays them $1,000 for the load. Okay, you get paid 75% of that, so you would get $750 in that example. And as soon as you deliver the load and scan the paperwork, they deposit the money into your account, instead of like Swift where you have a pay period. With Mercer, you also get fuel discounts. With Swift, like 3 cents a gallon. With Mercer, up to 50 cents a gallon. They also give you a fuel surcharge. Swift, they technically do, but it's like maybe 2 cents a mile, if that. With Mercer, it's based off the DOE estimates, which could be as high as, well, right now I think it's 22 cents a mile. So, combined with the fuel discount and of like 30 to 50 cents a gallon and 22 cents a mile extra money, you're going to make a lot more money, especially with the rates. And Swift pays you roughly about $1.14 per loaded mile, $1.12 per empty mile. You do the math on some of these loads on the Mercer board. Some of them work out to less than the Swift rate, but most of them are $1.45 to $1.60 a mile. From what I understand, the average is $1.48 a mile. There are some loads that pay as high as $2.80 a mile. Most of those are going up to Alaska, which they pay more because usually you don't get loads coming out of Alaska, so you kind of eat it on the way back. So I mean, it all varies. Mercer is mostly a flatbed company, but they do van as well. Van doesn't necessarily pay as well as flatbed, from what I've been told, but I've heard differing accounts. It's six of one, half a dozen of another. My best recommendation to people as far as becoming a lease operator is don't. Unless you have some kind of mitigating factor. If you have a family or anybody who relies on you to bring in your income, don't. Because, as a company driver, there will never be a week where you lose money. As a lease operator or owner operator, there are going to be plenty of times where you lose money. You have to make that truck payment win, lose, or fail every week or every month based off of how your contract is structured. So if you decide you want to take time off, you got to budget for that. You got to plan for that. If anything happens to that truck, that's on you. Even if it's covered under the warranty, you still got to take, however long off it needs to fix, and you still got to make that payment. So if you're down for 2 weeks, you're still liable for that payment. It doesn't matter that your truck's broke down. So, and then you get a negative balance, and then you have to work yourself out of that hole. So it's just not worth it. And then, medical benefits are ridiculous. So you can't afford medical insurance unless you get with a really good company. And honestly, most of those starter companies are not really good. But anyhow, I'm hoping things work out here. I'll try to do some of these videos to do updates and whatnot to let you guys know how things are going. Like I said, I like it here. Everyone I've met here has been really friendly. I get made fun of incessantly because, I used to be a Swift driver, but it's all good-natured ribbing. For the most part, they're cool people. And, when they say they treat you like family here, they mean it. I mean, some of the things blew me away. The washers and dryers here are free. You can just go in and do laundry. They're nice, industrial, front loader models. Better than the ones I got at home. And they got a full-sized kitchen, like an industrial kitchen, with, silverware and plates and pots and pans, and you're welcome to use it. They have refrigerators and ice machines, and there's food in the fridge that people donate for drivers who need it. 5 times out of 10 I go in there, someone's cooking something, they're more than willing to share or hook you up. The staff here are really friendly. It is the polar opposite of Swift. At Swift, it felt like I was in servitude to them, whereas the staff here know that they're servicing me, and they act like it, and it's amazing. It's a complete 180. They even have cars here that you can check out to go to like Walmart and go to the store or whatever. You can check them out for 2 hours. You just got to put some gas in them when you bring them back. That's crazy. At Swift, they would never let you do that, and when I was at Swift, for the most part, when I went to a terminal, I'd hide in the back corner of the terminal, and I'd only go into the driver lounge to use the bathroom and maybe take a shower in one of their nasty showers. I did time in prison, and the showers in the prison were better than the ones at some of these terminals at Swift. The showers here are freaking nice. They're really nice. They're pretty, they're clean, they're well lit. I don't have to worry about getting some flesh-eating disease in the showers here, whereas the ones at Swift, the driver's lounges are nice. The facilities are nice. It's just, like I said, it's a complete 180. So don't ever think you're stuck at Swift. And the only drawback of a company like Mercer is you got to have your own truck, which I do, luckily. And hopefully, things will work out. Anyhow, I think I babbled on enough for this one. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll answer them, and if I can. That's it for now. Bye.